Hi, hello, welcome to Sampurna Health Jeevan Jyoti seminar. Hope you had a blessed week and a happy week that has just gone by. We are coming back again with another topic that we have been discussing. So, just for your information, we are a group of people who are interested in health. We are Sampurna group team. Uh, in the last few weeks, we have been discussing, or a few months, we have been discussing about fear, and currently we are discussing on the topic of depression. If you are someone who is looking for some help and want to connect with us, please do contact us on the phone number that's been given here, and we are happy to connect with you. And I've got my friends here from Sampurna Health. I've got CJ Charles, I've got Russell George and Kay Fisher. Thank you for joining, and we are going to have a wonderful time today. And I'm going to ask each one of you to contribute wherever appropriate, and then we can have a wonderful time here. As probably if you all remember, last week we spoke about the marvelous mind and the invisible disease. If you remember, we were discussing on the topic of depression. Just a little recap before we go into this week's thought or discussion or seminar. So last week, if you remember, we spoke about or brought Abraham Lincoln's story. We saw into how a very prominent president like Abraham Lincoln, in his lifetime, he had depression. And when we see his upbringing, he came from a very poor background. He had many losses in his life, where he lost the job that he wanted, the business that he actually worked on, and also very importantly, he lost his loved one or his soulmate in an early age. All that brought about depression in his life. But we also saw that Abraham Lincoln, even though in his young age he went through depression, he went on to become a very prominent president of the United States of America, who was there during the Civil War of America, and he took the country through it, and he came out. Unfortunately, he was assassinated, but he was a very capable leader. He came out as a very capable leader. And I had my friend here, Russell George, who spoke about 10 hits, the reversible and the non-reversible causes of depression. And we spoke about what are the non-reversible causes: genetic, development. These are two things that we don't have control over. If you guys probably think of certain things in life, we have a circle where things that we can control over and things that is out of our reach. And we have got 8 categories or 8 hits we can work on and we can change. It's in our hands. So we said lifestyle is a changeable, circadian rhythm or sleep pattern, addiction, nutrition, toxicity, and complicated life situation, stress or grief, and medication and frontal lobe. These are other 8 hits that we can work on.
Yes.
And come out of depression or manage depression. Going back, and we also shared with you that anyone who thinks probably you've got depression, or if you think probably someone else in your family or a friend has got depression and you don't want to seek medical help straight away, you can do a self test on yourself. I would not rely on these tests 100%, but they are just there to guide you. So you can just Google and say depression self test. There are different tests that is available online. That is going to give you a little information onto what is the level of depression you are, or do you need to see someone straight away, or probably find some information or a seminar like this and learn something and try to manage your depression. Another very important thing that we discussed is depression is not be all and end all. It's not going to be there with you. If you are someone who has been diagnosed with depression, you don't have to fear. There is hope. Depression is a disease. We call it as a disease, but it is very much so reversible. And we also left you with this tip saying we spoke about how walnut, it resembles our brain. It has got this antioxidant and anti-inflammatory property, and it have consuming a walnut on a regular basis will help our brains function much better, improve our cognition, help us with depressive thoughts, and also it helps with um, dementia, Alzheimer's disease. So this is where we left. So we want to take from where we left into today's topic, lifestyle management and depression. We did talk about many things that are reversible. So today I'm more interested, or I would love to talk about or to share what I have learned about how negative thinking, negative thoughts can cause depression, and people who are depressed can also have negative thoughts. And I've got my friends here too. They're going to jump in as they can, as they wish, to talk about and add information on negative thinking. That's something that we will talk about. Another important thing is about sleep. Depression, sleep. We know a lot about how people who are depressed have very difficulty to sleep, and people who don't sleep properly have a higher risk of having depression. Everyone, we all know about physical activities, exercise, but depression, people who are depressed, as I mentioned before, go out very less, and also people can come out of depression if they have a regular exercise in their life. And a very important or a very promising lifestyle management or lifestyle intervention that we can all do at home is music therapy. We will look into details in the coming weeks. Just some information. I don't know how many of you would have thought about how many thoughts we have per day. Researches, I was looking up, and there are many researches. Please pardon me if this research what I'm presenting is not up to date, but generally this is what they say. A human being has about 60,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of thoughts. In that 60,000 thoughts per day, they say 57,000 of these are habitual. What they mean by habitual is you think about the same thing. If you go back and think of what you did yesterday, I'm sure probably it is majority of the things that you did yesterday. Eating, sleeping, making choices of what you're going to eat, going to work, talking to your family. All these are habitual thought that comes in your mind. Among the 57,000 habitual thoughts, some researchers say people who are depressed or people who have got depressive thoughts, 45,000 of these thoughts are negative. What do you think? Do you think we have a chance to change these negative thoughts? Yes,
For me,
Russell. Yep.
for me, the surprising thing is to realize that we have 60,000 thoughts in a day. I don't know. We start counting, we'll be counting the whole day. But yeah, I didn't. When you showed this to us earlier this afternoon, I was very surprised. I was like, wow, that's a lot of things going through our mind every day, every
Yeah.
single day. And even though 50, I guess the thoughts that we are conscious about is 3,000 thoughts. That's a lot itself.
Yeah.
Just to be mindful of, oh, I'm thinking this, or I'm thinking that, or I'm worrying, or whatever it is. This something is new, and maybe I have a job interview tomorrow,
Mm.
or I have to meet the principal or something. And all these thoughts itself takes so much, puts us under so much of pressure, I guess. And thinking of another 57,000 thoughts going through our mind, I was like, wow. And on top of that, like 45,000 of those thoughts are negative. Wow, that must put a lot of pressure on each of us.
Yeah, I think what they mean by 45,000 of these thoughts are negative. It doesn't mean that every human being in this world have these 45,000, but people who are depressed or who's got negative thoughts, who's got poor self-esteem, those kind of people
Mm.
with emotional issues, mental health issues, have in average 45,000 negative thoughts. Have you ever thought of these things in your life, or have you ever thought, what if? What if something happens? We always end up saying, what if this goes wrong, or what my manager does something, or what happens, or what if the children doesn't turn out? For parents, that is a big concern.
Mm,
What if the children don't turn up? What if, like some in some marriages and some relationship, what if they cheat me? What if they
mm,
do it? It's always what if. But the very promising and a gifted organ that we have in our brain is the human brain. Human brain is not something like our bones. Once it is grown, you can't modify it. It's not flexible. A bone, if it fractures, you will see there is a crack. Nothing can be done. It grows. But the marvelous thing and how we are being created by our creator is human brain is flexible, and the very important thing that I would like to leave here is trainable. If we are someone who wants to get out of depression or to get out of negative thoughts, that that can be done by training our brain or training our thoughts. So I would probably want to go into details about choices that we make. For example, in life, we have a big part to play in our lives with choice. People, people or human beings are bestowed with this wonderful power that no other creatures have, is making choices. We do make choices about where we are going to eat our next meal, what we are going to eat, what we are going to wear, how we are going to go, what holidays that we want to do, holidays that we want to go, places to go, and we also make plans about or make choices which is the right bank to put our money, which is the right person to marry. We make thousands of choices in our lives. But thinking about negative thoughts, have you ever thought about the choices? Have you ever taken that time to think about what am I thinking? So for us, or for people who are having negative thoughts and people who are battling depression, I know it is very difficult to make choices. When you are depressed, you want somebody to help you, but we as a team in Sampurna want to give this to you. If you are someone who are struggling with making choices in your thinking and you think you need an external support, we are always happy to help you through whatever means we can, over through a phone call, or you write to us and we are happy to contact you. Making choice, when we are kids, kids are being taught from a childhood age how to make choices. When they're little, there are usually parents give them two, one or the other. So they learn, they grow to make choices. But when we grow old and when we are adults, nobody teaches us, or nobody knows what are the thoughts that we go in our mind. And it is in our own capacity to make choices, especially with thinking. So I want to leave this very important step in overcoming negative thinking is the choice that you make. The first choice is to see what you want to choose, to think about. Next thing that I would like to uh, uh, talk about is analyzing your thought. Very seldom we think about what we think about, if I make sense. Very seldom, probably I don't know how many days that we just go thinking thoughts, as it says here, 60,000 thoughts a day. Just generally we keep thinking about it, not giving it a second thought to say, is my thought process right? Is it a negative thought? Is my thinking positive or negative? So it's very important for us to analyze what we are thinking. I know it looks like any other class where we always talk about planning. It's like a project. If I look into what I've written here, it's like a project. We need to think, make choices. We just have to make plans, analyze, and we also going to make plans. Why I have put this point as planning is because we are required to plan ahead in our lives. Not it's not going to happen for every situation. For example, in the past, if I had a situation where I was I was I was anticipating or using this word, what if I go to my manager, she's going to tell me, no, I'm not going to give you a leave. So probably this has happened in the past. So for me to avoid that negative thought, for example, I'm going to say, oh, she's not going to give it to me because she doesn't like me, or she like putting yourself down, or all those thoughts. So if you are someone who does that and you want to come out of that negative thinking, I would encourage you to think over what you're going to delve into, or circumstances that you might probably think you might face every day, and you plan ahead and choose in your mind that I'm going to focus on the positive side of life rather than looking at the negative side. It is very important for us to retrain our brain, and our brain, as I mentioned, it's a very flexible and trainable organ in our body. Any thoughts from anyone else, please? Russell, if you've got any thoughts to share, I would welcome you to share on this topic of negative thinking. Kay or Charles, anyone?
Yes, I see that as you share about the number of words that we speak and the choices that we make, um, I see that our brain is working too much.
Mm.
So I think we need to take care of our brain very carefully, and we need to balance what is right with the brain. If we overload our brain, I think that in itself will automatically lead us to depression and stress. So we need to be very careful about what we think, what choices we make, and what words we speak, where we go, what we do. It all matters, because if you take too much into our brain, then what's going to happen to the brain is my personal question.
Yep.
I think we need to keep our brain uh, to an extent. I mean, to the measure of what the brain can take,
Yep.
and keep ourselves happy and think well, think good good thoughts, and be positive in life.
Yeah.
I think that'll help us to be very happy in life. If not, I think there's burden to the brain.
Yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. It's right. What I hear you say, Charles, is that we in this modern world where we are running behind many things that people in the past probably wouldn't have even imagined. We have thoughts, thousands of thoughts that is probably doesn't help us in our day-to-day life.
Yes, as you said, out of 60,000 thoughts, 57 thoughts are the thoughts that we think usually about the past or so. And
Yeah,
there's a certain
habitual thoughts. Yep.
habitual thoughts, though. What are we going to gain out of those thoughts? We're going to repeatedly we're going to think the same.
Yep.
And what we thought yesterday, we're going to think the same today and tomorrow. So what's new in the brain? What's exciting? What's happy in the brain? It's not going to benefit us in any way. So we need to be very careful about what we think. Yes, even the words that we speak, most of the words are spoken from the old day. I mean, what we spoke yesterday, we speak the same today. And what is the benefit out of it? So what's innovative, what's new, what's going to be good for us? For example, if you speak of the same words and think of the same things, for example, if we were talking negative things yesterday, and probably we are going to talk negative today.
Yep.
So that's why I think we need to load our brain with good things. So if we talk good yesterday, we talk good today, tomorrow, and forever.
Yep.
So I believe we need to load our brain with the positives, the good ones, and to the measure what the brain can take, not much.
Definitely. Thank you. So what I hear you talking is about positive thinking and focusing on the positive things of life. And if we are loading our brain with unnecessary thoughts, our brain is going to be overwhelmed with all these thoughts.
Yes, I think why people do not sleep well, because of the old thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, we are coming to that. We are coming to that in the next slide. Any
Yeah.
thought from you, Russ or Kay?
I do have something I was thinking about this topic. With negative thinking, it could also, I think, spill over into who we associate with
Definitely.
and
Yep.
where we are. Because if we are with friends who, make us feel good about ourselves, who are positive influence, who are happy, who are cheerful. I mean, I know from experience, I have a friend who's always very happy and outgoing. And when I'm with them, I always feel really good after it. But I
Yep.
also have a friend who's very, she just chooses to see the bad things in life. It's just how she is. And I know that after I've spent, a couple of minutes or hours with her, I come away, I'm like, oh, so I think it's really important to think of who you spend your time with, because that can have a huge effect on your thoughts.
Definitely. Thank you, Kay.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important thing, important point
Yes.
to think of. Yep.
I wanted to support Kay by one or two words.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
See, I was reading a book and it said about negative thinking, and it says some people may look very good and they dress well, they do well in life. In early morning, they exercise well and they keep themselves fit, and they walk on the road to the office, for example. They get ready and groomed well. They walk down the streets to their office, or maybe their neighbors see them and say, "Hey, why do you look dull, man?" Actually, this man is not dull. He's very good. See, he's actually keeping well.
Yeah.
But somebody sees him and says, "Hey, what happened to you? Why do you look so dull?" And this man who wants to keep himself well thinks, "Am I really looking dull? What's wrong with me?" And the whole day is spoiled. There's somebody who's putting a negative thought in his mind, and there's somebody who's not sick.
Yep.
Probably was just come out of the hospital after surgery or whatever. And somebody goes and says, "Hey, how come you came alive today?"
Yes.
You see, what would happen to this person? "Hey, what's wrong? I came alive. I'm happy. I'm healed. I came out of hospital and my surgery is successful. I'm going to live long." And somebody comes and says, "How come you came alive? I thought you would not come alive,
I know.
And you can think of any other thinking. It can happen in your family. It can happen in your hospital or workplace or amongst your friends. They can feed your mind with negative thinking. Although you feel so good about yourself, people put in negative thoughts and put you in doubt and let you think that as if you're not so good. So we should be very, very careful about with whom you join, and
Yep.
selecting friends is
Yes.
very important. I remember my parents used to tell me, join good friends in your school. It takes time to select good friends. Because of good friends and with whom we socialize, build our life. So, Kay, that's very, very important point.
Thank you, Kay and Charles, for bringing out that part of how association with people who have got negative thoughts can also influence us. I want to read something that I came across in Facebook. Being too close to a wrong being so let me go back and say being too close to the wrong person can ruin you. So it's like if a rotted banana is kept close to a nice one, it's going to spoil. So thank you, Kay, for bringing that very important point, and Charles for adding up his life story about how his parents had taught him to choose good friends. It's very important, and I think we have good friends and bad friends in our brain, and it is very important for us to choose the positive or the faith-filled thoughts in our brain. Any thoughts from you, Russell?
Yeah, no, I'm just grateful for the thoughts that have been shared around already, making us think about our thinking actually. And I think that's one thing that I'd really like to just on your previous slide which you had there,
Yeah.
it had analyzing the middle one there. I
Yeah.
don't think we normally do that enough. I think
Yeah.
we don't we just think that that's the way we are. Maybe we need to question a bit our thinking, and we need to really think about, why am I what are my thoughts and why am I thinking certain things. And because I don't know if we pause and to reflect, and I think that's why journaling maybe might help.
Definitely.
As we spend some time, as we write our thoughts on and going over them, it just helps us to know where our thoughts are, know what's going on in our minds. So it'll help us to reflect on it and say, okay, what kind of day was I having? Or and then how is it 1 week and then a month? How have I been thinking over that month? It
Definitely.
helps us, I guess, in that area. But yeah, so I think just to question, I guess, is very helpful. So maybe journaling could be one thing that we could do in that process. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Russell. Just I'm going to talk about what I used to do, even this morning or last night. There were some circumstances, and these thoughts came into my mind, and I did something that I was unwise. And after discussing with my husband, we had a chat of all that has happened, and I said, "Oh, I feel guilty. Why did I behave this way?" And I went ahead, like I went forward and said, "Okay, I'm going to think back what was going in my mind." And I said, "Okay, my negative thoughts or my emotional thought led me to do something that was unwise." And I said, "I'm going to write it down. I'm going to say, why did I end up in this situation where I feel bad for what I've done?" And to analyze my thoughts, how I was probably overwhelmed with what happened, and I just went ahead with the negative thoughts, and I went ahead and did something that was unwise. I think it's very important for us to journal. Even if you can't take a big diary, this is what I used to do even at work. I would take a little small sticky note. I would write my thought,
Excellent. Good idea.
and I used to keep it in my purse. And when I had time, I'll say, why did I have that thought? Even though I didn't have the time to analyze my thought, I would write that thought. For example, I feel frustrated, or if I feel angry, or I feel down, I might write that I'm feeling down. I don't know why. I might go back and sit down and reanalyze the circumstances and situation which led me to that negative thinking or feeling down. So thank you all for sharing the thought. I just want to end. I know we have come to the end of our time, given time. I want to end with this thought that I read from a very prominent author, or an author that I read and spend a lot of time reading her books. She says, it is a positive duty to resist melancholy, discontent thoughts, and feelings, as much a duty as it is to pray. I know many people, probably whoever is watching, probably you're from a religious background. We do prayers. We do a lot of religious thing, going to church or temple or a mosque or a gurudwar, anything. We prioritize prayer as a topmost in our lives. People, especially from the Asian background and Western people, I don't want to discriminate anyone who's got a background, or we always spend some time thinking about the divine or the divinity. Here, this author says it is so important for us to also resist the thoughts, because we always communicate with our divine power. We always connect with a divine power who has created us through our brain. And if our brains are filled with negative thoughts and discontent thoughts and melancholy, feeling like you're down, you feel inferior, there's very less room for divine power to be part of that what I say, that relationship what you have with God. So I encourage each one of you, and I'm going to take this with me too. Said, I want to be resisting all those discontent thoughts and negative thoughts, so I can have a better relationship with not only the divine power that I believe in, but also with people that I live in. So I'm going to stop here and ask probably Russell to just leave us with the last thought, and to give us the tip for this week, talking about negative thoughts. So I'll leave that to Russell. Thank you, Russ.
Thanks, Josephine. Yeah, so we haven't had a chance to actually look at that picture and to see what we see. Maybe we'll do
Yes.
it next week as well. Or did you want
Yeah.
to do it now?
We
We'll do
can
it
do
next
it.
week.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's up to, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Russell, for bringing that in. So, what do you see here? I know many of us look at this picture. When I looked at the picture and I said, wow, beautiful place. I wish I can be in this place, experience that serenity of being in this place, playing with the water, and also seeing the surroundings, because we are always surrounded by buildings, cars, man-made things. And I really like this picture. But many times there are people who are depressed, or people who have negative thoughts, look at the stones and say, oh my goodness, There's water, but how will I get across to the other side? They see the dry mountain, what you see at the background. They look at the cloud and see how dark and dull it is. So when we consciously are looking for something, that's what becomes more prominent to our eyes. For example, if you show this picture to anyone, for example, okay, what do you see in this picture? If I ask you, what do you see in this picture?
I see a river, a calm river. There's with water just trickling over stones, and it's very quiet, very relaxed.
I know. Thank you, Kay. See, when the way we look at things gives an insight as to where our thinking is. So I want to leave this by saying, take 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 a step back. Think of your thoughts, because these thoughts have a big impact on your mental health, especially with people who are depressed or who are prone to depression. I want to leave this with you, that thinking of what we think and focusing on the positive sides of life is so important for us to live a happy life in this world. I'll give it to Russell. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah, and I guess just to add a little game that we could play
Yes.
next week, and maybe we can try it for a week. Dr. Nedley, as we've been talking about, we've been sharing some of his material. This one is his older one. It's depression and anxiety recovery program that he
Mhm.
runs. A little game that he asks his the people who come, he asks them to play is a game where for 2 weeks you cannot say anything negative.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say anything negative. You start whenever you want to start the game, and then once you start the game, for 2 weeks you cannot say anything negative. For example, someone says someone has a orange water bottle and they come to you, they say, oh, isn't it really pretty? And you may not like orange, you may like blue, or you may
Mhm.
like purple, or you may like green or something else, and you really don't like the color orange. uh, but then they say, oh, isn't this a lovely one? And instead of you saying, oh, I don't like, or I hate orange or something like that, you could say, potentially say something like, I prefer green.
Yeah.
So a way of doing the same thing, saying the same thing, dealing with the same issue, but from another perspective. And exactly like how Kay said earlier and Charles said mentioned earlier as well, just careful with our words, careful with what we are saying. So it'll help us train our brain to think of another in another perspective, not denying it, but just going through life in another way. Yeah, going through life in another way. So for 2 weeks, so maybe it might be too much for 2 weeks. Let's try for 1 week, or maybe a
Yeah.
couple of days. Play with
Yeah.
yourself a couple of days. Like you start it and then say, okay, no more negative. You can say what you need to say, but from another angle. So you don't say anything negative. Yeah. So that'll be a good game for us to try for this week.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you. As you mentioned, like about this game, this is a little activity that's going to train our brain, because as I mentioned in the slides that has gone by, saying that our brain is trainable and we need to train, and we have exercise that we can do. Is Probably I'm going to start with 1 day or 1 hour how to avoid negative thinking or not to say anything negative. I think it's building up little by little. Thank you everyone for your time and your valuable thoughts. I want to thank everyone. We are just closing. I'm just going to share the slide back again. Sorry, just going to go back. This week. Yep, going back again, we are the Sampurna Australian Health team here, and we are always interested in the welfare of the people that we live with our friends, our family. So we have been running this program for the last probably 7 weeks. So we are on the topic of depression. If anyone out there who's got some issues with depression, fear, or loneliness, if there is something that you think probably our team can help you, you can SMS in the number that's been given. I would really encourage you, if you are someone who is really severely depressed, to seek medical help. Thank you for your time.